exercises to increase interview data. I'm going to draw a lot upon my doctoral research where I use photo elicitation exercises. So basically, all it is it involves inserting a photograph into the research interview, but it can also involve other media such as cartoons, charts, paintings, drawings, and maps. But this is obviously dependent on what kind of research you're trying to do. So the incorporation of visual methods has been suggested as a way to reveal sociological insights that are not accessible by other means. The pictures or the drawings or whatever visual method you're using is supposedly a way of drawing out more information than what an interview alone would, than what just asking your participants straight questions would. So participants can use the photographs to provide a unique way to communicate dimensions of their lives. And so this is obviously really interesting if you want to do research with children, communicate better with images instead. You show them an image rather than asking them a straight question that might be full of jargon. By showing an image, they can provoke their memories and they might get talking about something, if it's their favourite show or a place that's familiar to them. Okay, so the research background, the way I use photo elicitation, it was a human geography study, but it was really based in geographies of disability and disability studies. It was interested in the social and spatial experiences of dwarfs in public spaces. So I produced photographs, and I used 6 photographs from various spaces, and these were taken off the internet. I also used 2 to 3 maps from Google Maps, and this was usually of the participant's hometown or city. So what they're meant to do is elicit longer interviews. Obviously, this is usually dependent on the amount of images that's shown. The more images you show, the more data that's going to be produced, supposedly anyway. Okay. And it usually gathers richer data as it can provoke more questions about the use of different spaces and reinforce what's already been said and pull up any contradictions. So for example, if my participants were telling me they never like to walk down a high street, and then I showed them a map of the high street, they would say, well, it's this map, this road, I don't like going down this high street. And then I could ask why, and they could point out the certain shops or certain places that they would avoid and why they avoided those places. But it could also point out that if I showed them a map and they said, oh, I love this high street, well, why are you telling me that? Because you just said 5 minutes ago that you avoided any high streets. So it's, a way of clarifying data, so it should be then more reliable. So there's 5-step protocol, which is sourcing the photographs, selecting the photographs, preparing the interview, then conducting the interview, and then analysing the textual data. What I found useful was, in order to analyse the data, was that when I spoke about the photos on the maps, I would say, I'm now showing you image 1, and then image 2, so that when I was analysing them and transcribing all the interviews, I knew where I was. I knew that, oh, this is that image, because a lot of the times a researcher, when they use photo elicitation, they can get very confused when analysing the data that, hang on, which image was this, which picture was this. So just to make it more easier. So there's 2 ways that you can produce the photographs. They can either be the participants producing the photographs or the researcher. So the pros with participant-produced photos is that they're emancipatory, so they're often empowering. This is great for disability research and feminist research, where more emphasis is given to the participants as opposed to the researcher. They control what the participants want to share. So if you tell them you want several photographs, they're only going to take photographs of what they want, not what you deem right or what you want. And shows what is important to them, because they're only going to show you pictures that are important to them, they're not going to show you something that's irrelevant to them. And it can bring about the emergence of unexpected topics. What I found, because I produced the photographs, if I allowed them to, they might have picked up photographs that said, I was showing them images of different spaces such as a shopping mall, a high street, that kind of thing. They might show me a museum or a theme park and give me a completely different reason why that is important to them. The cons is that it's very time consuming and costly. You have to give out all these disposable cameras, wait for them to come back. And obviously you're dependent on the participants sending these photos back. They might not have the time to go around take the photographs due to family or work commitments. So it's really time dependent, and if you're on a tight time schedule with your research, it can be quite difficult if you're waiting for all these participants to send you their cameras back. Then of course you've got to get them developed. And it's even more costly. If they've only taken 1 or 2 photos on a 24 reel of film on a disposable camera, you're not really getting your money's worth. So the research-produced photographs can produce positive bias, although that can be dependent on positionality. Reduces the time and cost, as I've spoken about earlier. And you can get a large number of images available on the internet, although I would say when I was sourcing these I had to make sure that they were proper large images, not these tiny little images that no one could see, so you have to really filter that through on Google. And using images chosen by the researcher is appropriate when conducting theory-driven research, when you want a particular theory. But they can lack the same narrative power that participants who produce photographs have. So like I said, when I was producing the photographs, I might come across something more interesting if I'd allowed the participants to. The reason why my participants didn't produce the photographs was because it was a study on dwarfism. When I said, I have to give you a camera to go out, they said, well, I already get stared at, I already get laughed at by people. If I go around taking photos of mundane spaces like a cash point or a self-service checkout, it's going to grab even more attention to me, and I don't want that. So that's why I allowed why I chose the pictures. So this is one of the photographs I used. So of just a random man in the UK. So there's elements of the photograph to evoke responses, both spatial and social. So as Banks suggests, the photo elicitation exercises can aid in providing more detail to vague memories and thus generate more detail. If I might ask my participants, well, what are your, how do you feel about going down a shopping mall? They might say, they're too big, I have mobility difficulties, there's some shops I like, but they can be too crowded, so I'll avoid them. Whereas showing them a picture, there was specific elements there that they could pick at. Like for example, a few of my participants said they'd never walk past the early learning centre because that's where the children are, and that's likely to provoke more unwanted attention towards their body size. Another said, the cost of coffee. That'd be really difficult to access because, as you know, when you go to Costa's, the table's really high up where you have to reach your coffee from. So if you have to walk for some, that's a spatial barrier. They also said, really good details like the marble flooring. One participant said she couldn't walk on that. It would upset, because she has mobility difficulties in the way she walks, it'd be really bad on her spine. Others said they won't, if they walk past us, the older people there, they're bound to turn around and look at them. And they also said, well, there's a bench there, that would be useful to sit on because of my mobility difficulties, but at the same time I can't get on it because it's too high. So because the photograph's really detailed, it picks out these detailed elements of how the participants navigate these spaces and how they experience them both socially and spatially. Then I also honed in on certain facilities, so in this case self-service checkout. If I'd asked them, I did ask them about self-service checkout, a lot of them said, I have to get something to bang the screen because I can't reach it. They're really impossible to use. So I got a bit of information, but then when I showed them the picture, it evoked more memories. Like they say, the chip and pin machine there is out of the way, I can't reach it. I can't reach the place where you put your money in. The screen's out of reach. So there was more elements there that, I got more of their experiences and understood how they access them better. So then, like I say, I used about 2 to 3 maps. These are easily available on Google Maps. So they added more information about the space and the navigation of these spaces. So with the map, you can easily show how you navigate a certain space. So it evoked the memory of space. What I try and do is zoom in and look at areas where there was a lot of things going on, maybe a hairdresser's, bank, anywhere that you usually use on a daily basis, plenty of shops. And some would say, that's the pharmacy I won't walk past because right next to it there's a primary school. So it again backed up what they'd said before about not wanting to walk past a primary school, but also how it affected them in that particular space. Or they'd say, this is a very busy high street, I won't go down there. This is the nightclub that, I'll sometimes go here, but I'll go to this one instead of that one because it's not as busy, and as you can see, it's not busy to all the others. So they can open up images, spaces and meanings in specific and productive ways to enhance our understanding of the social world and meanings. So obviously it was much more detailed. So in conclusion, I found that they can produce more data because it's more specific, more detailed. So there's elements within the images such as people, facilities that provoke memories and help to understand the experiences of spaces. The research participant produced images is dependent on the research project. It depends on time constraints, it depends again on ethics. And different visual images can produce different data. So if you show them facilities versus large open spaces, or if you show them pictures of their families, all these images can produce different meanings and memories. So they are useful in understanding experiences of spaces, so they're very applicable to a geographical study. And it can be time-consuming and costly. That's about the only problem that I had with mine was, again, like sourcing the photographs and stuff. But again, you can reduce the time costs through, producing your own photographs. But then you've got the other cons to that. Okay. Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, just a comment really. I think one of the points that you touched on is the fact that sometimes informants, perhaps unwittingly, will give you contradictory information. That can always be a difficulty in pointing that out to them without, it sounding like a reprimand. Or I just wondered if you could say a bit more about how you handle that.
I think I was just trying to, because like you say, it could be like you're trying to make out they're liars or something.
Yeah.
So it's again about building that rapport with them in the first place. But then just to clarify, like if they said to me, oh, I never walk down the high street, and then they point out to me, oh, you always go down this high street, and I go, well, you said you don't like high street, so is there anything special about this particular high street that would make, is there any reason you have to go down here? And maybe is it affected by time? Because a lot of people would tell me, they don't go down the high street, say, after 10 o'clock in the morning because that's when the crowds start to come in, or they don't go on the weekends because that's when all the school kids are off. So it's just about trying to phrase it correctly so that you, like you say, you're not touching a nerve with them.
Erin, have you extended this through use of video or anything at this stage?
No, I mean, I've done the project now, it's over and done with him.
Could you start it again?
No, I don't want to. But it would be interesting to have video. I mean, I know there's a video on Facebook of a guy with dwarfism who walks around New York and he shows people photographing him, taking like with their mobiles, and he records a conversation where this man asks him for a photograph, and I think that would be really interesting. But I think it'd be involve a bit of espionage really, because like I said, when they used the camera, that was bad enough. That was going to get unwanted attention. If they had to record things, it would get even more unwanted attention. But yeah, it would be interesting. Yeah.
I was just wondering, are there any issues related to kind of reducing a multisensory environment to its visual manifestation, by using photographs? So would all of the factors of an environment that would have an impact on the spatial or social experiences of your participants be capable of being rendered visually?
I think you could get more visually. I don't know if you could do them all, because like I said, with that one participant who says she doesn't like walking on the hard floor, hard surfaces, which you can't really get if you're just asking an interview or thing in the shopping mall. So there was that, but I don't know if you could really capture all of them and how that could be done, if that would have to be done differently. Yeah.
How did you choose the pictures? What was
I used my own positionality as someone with dwarfism and thought about the different spaces I had trouble interacting with and where my dwarfism was most troublesome, where I got the most unwanted attention. But I also sort of asked participants when I was originally researching this, and when they said, no, I don't, I'm not going out taking photos, I asked them what kind of spaces, that they interacted with often and stuff, and just tried to pick the most ordinary daily spaces that we all interact with, such as the high street and shopping mall and places like that. Instead of just more sort of rarer spaces like theme parks and stuff. So it was really just trying to use my own initiative. Really.
I was interested in that point as well about, you were talking about the participants saying they didn't want to draw attention to themselves. Was your original plan then to have them take photos and then at some point you changed to the researcher taking?
Yeah, because I had it all set out because how you do all your proposals and everything and then go out into the field work. Well, when I was trying to gather participants for the research, I was then speaking to them and explaining what they'd have to do, an hour-long interview, but before that, go out and take some photos. And I should have realised from my own positionality that I would have liked to have done that. That's why I used Google Images instead of going around my local places taking photos. It was because because it just said it just wrapped so much unwanted attention to ourselves, and that was just such a, you know, it was blatantly obvious, but I hadn't really thought of it until then. So yeah, last minute when I went back and spoke to my supervisors, I explained the situation, and they said, well, you can just get images, Google, and it was quite a quick process to do. But I had already bought disposable cameras at that point. And they ended up at a friend's wedding.
Any other questions, comments? Well, thanks very much, Sharon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.